Okay, so my topic today is physician-assisted suicide. So imagine you're severely ill and in great pain. Imagine that you're suffering and you know that you only have a few more months to live. Would you choose to continue to suffer for the remaining of your time on Earth, or would you choose to accept death and choose to? Or would you accept death knowing that you'll be in peace? These are questions you should keep in mind as I continue speaking. So, the right to physician-assisted suicide is a significant and sensitive topic. This concerns people all over the world. So, according to a government website published in 2015, it states that in 1994, the Oregon Death with Dignity Act was passed after an appeal, and it permitted physicians in Oregon to prescribe lethal drugs for terminally ill patients who wanted to end their own lives. So I fully support this, even though it goes against my system of beliefs and religious practices. It's crucial to note that this is in fact a highly emotional issue, and a lot of people can relate to this. So there's no correct stance, really. So I know that you've all lost someone dear to you, or watched them suffer from terminal illness or any illness of that sort. So having volunteered at a hospital, I've seen it all. I've seen the patients that feel like they're helpless, feel like they're suffering, and just want to be out of misery, want to be in peace. So patients who refuse life-saving treatments and patients who request physician-assisted suicide, I believe, should be treated alike. So today I'll be talking about two moral problems: whether physicians are justified in performing these actions, and whether public policies are justified in whether public policies that legalize these acts are justified. So now that you know what physician-assisted suicide is, I'll talk about the problem of why physicians that perform these acts is not justified, and I will also talk about why public policies that legalize these acts are not justified. So the first main point, there have been a lot of terminally ill patients throughout history. Many wish to end suffering. So the first problem, according to an unknown author at IIT Chicago-Kent College of Law, New York's ban, while permitting patients to refuse life-saving treatments on their own, and historically treatments on their own, has historically made it a crime for doctors to help patients to commit or attempt suicide, even if patients are terminally ill or in great pain. States like New York, who believe that physician-assisted suicide is incompatible with the physician's role as a healer, argue that suicide is immoral and the law should not permit doctors to commit immoral acts. So instead of having physicians lose their credibility and trust with this procedure, so instead of letting physicians lose their credibility and trust with performing this procedure, leaving this procedure in their hands, maybe the procedure should be left in the hands of the lawmakers. So we have argued that now that you understand the two moral problems of physicians, now you know two moral problems of physician-assisted suicide, I will begin with the first cause of it. to me, the state interests listed above, they're not that compelling to me. So according to Justice Stevens, published in January 27, 2014 by Harvard Law, a state like Washington that has authorized that death penalty and thereby concluded that the sanctity of human life does not require that it always be preserved. So they must acknowledge that there are situations which interest hastening death of is legitimate. So Justice Stevens argues that the death penalty is not a part of the preservation of life. So why should this physician-assisted suicide be illegal? So now that I've talked about the problems and causes, I'll talk about the solution. So my solution to this problem would be to enact a law that allow patients who suffer terribly and lawfully and receive assistance to die. Physician-assisted suicide would be an ethical response to desperate needs and suffering. In fact, according to law by states, physician-assisted suicide is currently legal in 5 states, which is Oregon, Washington, Montana, New Mexico, and Vermont. The Equal Protection Clause protects the patient's right to die. I believe that the patient must be fully aware of their options, and they should be fully aware of their options, and in addition, they should have 2 patients, two physicians to stand by and listen to the patient's requests. And if one physician decides that the patient may be mentally unstable, they'll send him to a counseling. So another solution, in respect to the opposing view, physicians should maintain their roles as healers and leave the decision making in the lawmakers' hands. So when they leave the decision in the lawmakers' hands, they decide that the court can decide the competency of the patients and authorize lethal medications that would be self-administered. So why would they make it self-administered? It's so that the responsibilities would be in the hands of the patient. So now that I've explained everything from physician-assisted suicides and why they are morally wrong, and why public policies that make these laws are not justified, so yeah, now that you know all this, the right to a person who requests treatment should be who denies treatment, life-saving treatments, should be treated the same way as a person who requests suicide. And I hope that I've convinced the majority of you that physician-assisted suicide is the right way to go. So I ask of you all to write, if you agree with me, I ask of you all to write a letter to Congress. Tell them your viewpoints of why physician-assisted suicide should be legal in the United States, and and just convince them to legalize it throughout. Thank you.